I think I met most of you people, so it's nice to see everybody. I didn't even know there was a casket factory till a couple years ago. And I'm sure everybody remembers where the casket factory was. It's where the post office and the beauty parlor and the storage units are. And it took over quite a large area, and you'll see some of the pictures as we get rolling. So this is part 4 of our reports on.
Do you want the lights
This
off?
is the Nunda Casket Company. And Joan Shoemaker helped me quite a bit in putting this together. So in 1924, Henry C. Jones, you may remember him from your history, started a cabinet factory, and it stayed there, and 155 years later, then it closed. Henry C. Jones was noted for putting together the maps of the downtown area, downtown Nunda, and developed some of the streets. Then in 1951, Tuthill and Cree, don't know much about them, but they were cabinet makers and made furniture and made to order coffins and caskets. Now, does everybody know the difference between a casket and a coffin?
No.
Anybody? Coffin is tapered. It tapers at the front and at the back, and it's wide in the middle. A casket is rectangular. Caskets are made of, normally made of a lot finer wood, have interiors. Coffins can be just a pine box with a lid on it, and maybe a sheet or something like that. So and there's all kinds of mutations in between. So it took me a while to figure that out. In 1970, Hammond and Whitcomb they assumed the business, and that's where Wilson Willard came to town. And he came from Utica, and he traveled the Barge Canal, or the Erie Canal, and then he came through the Genesee Canal. And they say he was one of the last people to use the Erie Genesee Canal. And he came and started making caskets along with other goods. The Nunda Casket Works, he became president in 1889.
I think you skipped 1879. Wilson Willard, the one who came on the canal,
Yeah.
had his sons, and they assumed the business as Willard and Sons.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it changed to the 89.
Right.
And one of the sons became president. That was Herbert.
Now these are pictures. The one on the left is the bridge for the railroad that was, and then the one on the right is the bridge and the railroad, and the pond that was used for providing power and for the mill, and power for generators to provide electricity and to run the at the time water operations at the Nunda Casket Company.
Whoops, just a second. It went too far.
So the Casket company provided the power for the for lighting. It was right after the exposition in Buffalo, and they whoever in doing research in the newspapers and such, the town board was very interested in providing electricity for the downtown, and it would eliminate the kerosene lamps and eliminate the kerosene guy that had to put them out every night and light them up. And so there was, and it wasn't very much money that they had to spend on this endeavor, but they provided the electricity and used it for casket making works to run different operations, and then they sent it out into the community to, I think they did 13 arc lights and got rid of the kerosene guy. And the water system was provided. He put together the water system, and it was used here again for. They put a dam there at Casket, and they used it for the operations in the mill, and then later on it became the public water system of Nunda.
Yeah, I think one of the important things to note here is that Herbert, or Herb, it was called, was the one who started both of these, the electric company and the water works. And in Hans' centennial history of Nunda, you'll see this picture, and he calls him Nunda's chief hustler. And he really was. He was a mover and shaker, and he was also Nunda's most eligible bachelor.
He could get things done.
Yeah.
And then instead of manufacturing, they called it casket manufacturing. That was a term that was used instead of manufacturing. You'll see on the left-hand side, you can see the edge of the casket factory, and not too sure about the building on the right. That was not there in preceding pictures. It could have been one of his where they sold the caskets or such.
I think it was used for storage and maybe some of the detailing work or something. Yeah.
This you probably all remember is the Valley Shop, and Herb had this built. He was Nunda's most eligible bachelor at age 32, and he married Lee Bennett, which we have a picture of coming up. But he wanted to have a lot of kids, and I guess he never did. In 1909, the Willard, Oscar's son, Wilson's grandson, was the third generation to join the company. He served as president after his uncle Herb stepped down and until his death in 1967. And the name was changed to the Nunda Casket Company in 1913. This is...
Well, just a second. I don't know why it does that.
This kind of shows the relative location of the site, and you can see the Casket Creek. It's a lot wider at that spot where they dammed it up to provide the dam for the generators for the mill and to provide the power for the These are company workers in 1913. Anybody recognize anybody?
Frank Waker is in the upper. He's the third on the right in the back row.
Willard family business continues to expand, but without Herb, he left the company. I'm not really sure why. Leon served the presidency until '67. Wager becomes a partner, and also partner Harry Gordon. I don't have any pictures of him. Kenneth Willard, Oscar's second son, joined the company. Ken's first job was showing caskets, but he served many years as secretary, treasurer, and became president in 1967. And
Whoops, this seems to want to jump ahead.
okay, this is Ken, Oscar Willard and his son Ken, and then there's Ken and with his clarinet. We believe he's 15.
Yeah, approximately 15.
And then he married a pretty girl, Helen Gillette, photo taken upon their marriage in 1928. The manufacturing, manufacturing made-to-order caskets. This article was, they said, was in many papers throughout the country, and it was of a lady who worked in the circus, and she was very heavy, and 650 pounds. And so they made a custom casket for her, and it was I forget the dimensions, but it was 7'2" by 33 deep,
and 3 feet 2 inches wide.
Yeah, 3 feet wide. And they said it took many people to take the casket and deliver it. And we were talking, we were wondering, how would they, if it took that many people to put it in a truck, how did they get hurt? Get hurt to a resting place, But it shows you the scope of what they could do. They made something like 3,000 caskets in a good year. And I'm not sure if they were all caskets or coffins, maybe a combination of both, but they used, very high quality wood, mahogany, oak, maple, and cherry. And then you could provide your own appointments on the interior, whether it was silk or some other material. And this is the casket company workers in 26. You can see, if you look at the guy in the hat on the left, that's Ken. And Uyghur, they called him Red, is next to the door on the truck. Guy without the hat. This is just a picture of one of the interior pictures where they were preparing the interior of the coffins, and a group of ladies doing that process.
I'm not sure what's going on here.
And this is just another picture of them putting the linings in the caskets. This is a picture of the casket company. You can see the scope of it. It's pretty substantial, and yeah.
I think maybe it's important to note that the kiln was over on the south side.
Right, where the stack is.
And there's-
you can see.
And there's wood stacked up in back, ready to go into the kiln. And the house next door is really 13 South State Street, where the Valley Shop is, and that was the house that Herb built.
This is a picture taken in front of the Casket Company of a hearse in the 1940s. This is a picture of the 1950s. This shows the additions that were put on. You can see the stack and the give you a relative. This was pretty close to the street where, you know, we have the post office now. It's got a parking lot in between. So this was pretty much right on the street. Fourth and fifth generation, Dano O. Willard, Leon's son, and Wilson's grandson joins the company. And Dana was there for many years. And Dana O. Willard, his junior Wilson's great-grandson, became the fifth generation to work at the company. And he graduated in 1961. Here's a picture. The one on the right, we're wondering if it was just happenstance or what, that those deer were in the picture, if they moseyed along or what. But this shows Dana Willard inspecting the casket and his business card. This is Dana Oscar Willard. I guess everybody with an O in the Willard family was Oscar. And he graduated from Nunda, and he worked there as he was also had his own funeral home and lived on Church Street. This is Kenneth. In researching him, he was one of the most incredible people that you could believe. He was state senator, he was congressman, he was a mayor for many, many years. He put together the 390, and he was the one that put together that. He was a tremendous organist. He was involved with all these different functions. He and I read an article where he could type on a rotary typewriter 86 words a minute. Imagine that.
That's when he was a teenager.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, he was just an incredible man, and got a lot of things done for the community, and had a good life. Anything you want to say there?
Yeah, this is
Whoops,
just a second, let me go back to that.
This is the governor, Rockefeller. You probably all remember him, and signing the expressway. I think it was $53 million or something like that.
I don't remember the actual amount. Yeah.
And this is, you probably, most of you remember this residence that burnt down. And one thing that was interesting was Tuthill was the builder of this in 1867. And things were added at a later date, but beautiful house.
Whoops, there's a second here.
This box, if you'd like to look at it, this was the last thing that was produced at the Casket Company. I'm not sure why they produced it for, or who they produced it for, but it was given to the Historical Society.
That box was to house the Rotary historic stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
They were Rotarians.
Oh. Here's some pictures from the Rotary of Ken and Dana. Ken on the left, Dana on the right.
There was a scrapbook that came with the what they donated to us, and these pictures came from that book.
Then the end of 155 years of woodworking, the Nunda Casket Company closed in 1979, and it was torn down in 81. There's a picture.
Yeah, there was a picture, and then it disappeared in a
There's
hurry.
a picture here, a close-up of what it looked like. So you can see how what an area it took up and how close it was to the road when it was built.
Okay, so I guess if there are any questions.
Yes. Any questions that I can help you with, or you're wondering?
There was a map, a Sanford Insurance Company map.
Yes.
It didn't look correct. The arrow was pointing kind of up for north, but it had Water Street.
Water Street.
North of Casket Creek.
Oh, the one you're looking at, the one that was
So it was
just
in here.
Yeah.
And so I would assume that west was to the left where is Kiwanis Park where the big pond was?
yes.
I thought so. And so why was that one right there? Why would Water Street? That's where First Street would be. Or West, sorry, not West Street.
Depends on the year.
Yeah, Southwest Street, where would be around there, right?
Where it says water.
Yeah, where it
that's
says
west. That's the old way where West Street was. I think
Okay.
that changed.
I'm just curious, is that accurate? Because when there's a Water Street south of Casket Creek.
Yeah, I don't know.
John, there were a lot of changes in the village streets. For instance, what we call Water Street now was called Rawson Street
Okay.
very early in the time, and
So
it changed a lot.
Yeah, in fact, I think I've seen where First Street was Jones Street at one time, and
Yes.
you had a Jones that was part of it. So I was just curious if that map was inaccurate or that makes sense if they just changed the name of the
Right.
road.
Yeah.
Right. There's been many changes to that.
Okay. That way I get my bearings better.
I see.
I think Water Street, this picture there, I mean, obviously the West Street, as we know it, came down closer to the creek
Right.
and beyond where the company was. And I think there was a bridge that went across between the two buildings that were part of the casket works. And so I think that was just filled in with the new building.
And they may have very well called it Water Street because the big pond was to the west.
Yes, sir.
My name is Twist. C.M. Twist is my father, Bell Twist is my mother, lives at 52 Fair Street. The Casket Company did a lot, but they also controlled the hourly wage in that day, and it wasn't very high. And it, right up until after the war. So they did a lot of nice things, but they sure as hell made it their way, not anybody else's.
Uh-huh. Wow. Well, thank you for that. Anything else?
Just quick note, I had two classmates in school, Joe Gormel and Johnny Tucker, that had their eye on a little property. They were kids like us. Little property down where Matt Walker lives now in the brick house. It was a brick got out. It kind of goes back into the edge of the creek. Back then was all wooded. They figured, boy, that'd be a nice spot for a hut, nice hut. So they said, geez, we gotta get some lumber. Lumberyard, or the casket factory, had a whole pile of lumber real close to the creek. It was a rough cut. They got the idea, let's take some of those boards, they'll never miss them. They took the boards and waited till dark, or, close to dark, put them in the creek, and floated it down right to the spot where they were gonna build. And they did this for a number of times. One night, Claire Pierce walked out in the back of Water Street, his back lawn, fronted the creek. He walked out there for a smoke and everything. He says, "What's that?" The boards kept floating by, man, my God, where are they coming from? The only thing you could think of, well, maybe it's the pile of the Casket factory. So he went up and told them, he said, "You missed any lumber?" And they got looking. He said, "Gee, yeah, we are." Well, they eventually found out. And they told the boys, "Look, you could be in deep trouble for this, but all you gotta do is take the lumber back." Well, the creek didn't flow that. But they got it up there.
Did they take it back?
Oh, yeah, they took it back. They knew if they didn't, they'd be in deep trouble. I don't know how they got it up there, but
Never built a hut, did
they never built a hut. No.
Yeah, so this Ken Willard just seemed to me to be quite a unique individual. You know, he probably took after his dad and his granddad. He was a very interesting sort. So, thank you.
Well, I want to thank Tom Cook. He got a lot of information here that he found. It's amazing what he can find on the computer. But Wilbur Wilcox, I don't think there's a person in the room who can remember the red and white store next to the drugstore.
Committee.
I don't think there's a person here that. Okay. Okay, Wilbur Lorenzo
It is.
Wilcox. As you can see, born in 1881, Allegheny County. Parents were Joe and Catherine Wilcox. Joseph was a merchant in short track, and then they moved to York and eventually into Nunda. Now, the stores, this is around 1900, and you can see the end building, which is now the VFW. Well, it wasn't VFW. Now it's the Masons, I believe. The next one coming this way is the original hardware. And then the red and white store, Joseph Wilcox. That was Wilbur's father. That was the red and white store. The next one is our drugstore. As you can see, it was called a drug and bookstore. By the way, it goes back to 1840s. Always been a drugstore / pharmacy, nothing else. And it's always been a buy-sell, never vacant. It's kind of a record for this area. And it's amazing they're still going good in a small town. You don't see that much. And then the one with the horse in front was Stu Tresket's building. Okay, you got 4 storefronts. Roughly, they were roughly 20 feet wide. Now there's 2 storefronts. The first 2, well, they were built to put back to the original design. The one furthest one, of course, is the liquor store, and then the next one is the photography studio. And then we bought Stu Tresket's place, I think, in 1968. And we knocked out the wall and combined the pharmacy, put a new front on, and so forth. So now there's basically, you might say, 2 storefronts. The liquor store owns the photography. Okay, gotta get to my notes here. Wilbur had the store in 1930, but he closed it out to Flickinger's. And let me get my I'm missing that one, is that on there?
Yeah, that's coming next.
Okay.
That's coming next. he had clerked with his father, and his father died in 1908, and he took over that store, and he continued to run that store until, as Tom said, until 1930, and then he rented it out.
He rented it out, so he still owned the store. And so in 1936, he buys the store, well, he buys he gets into the grocery store business. And 1936, my dad came here in 35, so he was a neighbor to us. And I can remember vaguely because we lived up over our store till I was 4 and a half. And you can see the drugstore. Originally all these windows were shuttered, but when we bought the store, my grandfather made an apartment upstairs. They took the shutters off. And I remember as a kid sitting in that far right window eating dinner or whatever and looking out watching the traffic. And the red and white store right next to us. Faint memories. My mother would send me down when I was 3 or 4. She was fairly confident I'd come back with a dozen eggs or a loaf of bread, you know, because it was right next door. If I screwed up, it wasn't too bad a deal. So that's an interesting picture. Probably Memorial Day parade and shows of vintage cars, and we're thinking maybe around 1940. Yeah. And as you see, the hotel, Nunda Hotel, was right against the building there. That, and of course, right there where it joins the building, that is now the drive-through into the back parking lot. So, all right, so the next, that's some of his, when he got into the grocery store, that's some of his, sale ads. He didn't advertise too much. He had cane sugar and this and that, but he didn't advertise too much, and the store wasn't that big, but it sufficed as a grocery store back then. I can't read that on the far right, Tom, on the bottom. That's
that WB liked to hold up certain stores, and he was big on pushing businesses, local businesses, and that was from 42, and he highlighted the red and white food store. And if you can't read it, of the many food establishments of this county, not one enjoys a finer reputation for service than our own red and white market, operated by W.L. Wilcox. And then he goes down through that, and it mentions that who through the years, Wilcox has continued his fine service to local residents and has a splendid reputation.
and he did sell footwear, other than groceries. And he operated on a strictly cash basis, no credit, cash basis only. I'm getting back to the closing out sale in 1930. When the sale opened at 9 o'clock last Saturday morning, Nunda witnessed an unusual spectacle. The crowd waiting for the doors of the store to open, resembling eager ticket buyers at a baseball game or a circus. Extra clerks have been on duty from the start, and we dare say the sale has begun as pleasing to the public as it has to Mr. Wilcox. 12 clerks were kept busy Saturday, waiting on customers. It was reported the Fleckinger Grocery Company is considering taking a lease on the store at $75 a month. So then when he bought it in 36, that's when I remember. And Malcolm Galton told me a story. Malcolm had a lot of knowledge of history, past years, and we got him talking one day, he come to the store and he said, I mentioned Wilbur, you know. Because I remember Wilbur, he was about 5'7", pale skin, but he had a very squeaky, high-pitched voice. You could tell it was Wilbur. Just, you know, a little different than most men's voices. But Malcolm said that he had a bunch of bananas hanging, like the old-time grocery store, hanging down from the ceiling. And every morning after milk delivery, Nate Stanton, Ed Hyman, and Sod Carl would come in there, catch up on the gossip. What's going on, you know. And for a little morning snack, they'd start picking the bananas up. Well, they did that and got through what they had to say, and started to walk out, and Wilbur would holler, "Now, boys," he says this, "I haven't been paid for those bananas, you better divvy up." So back they'd come, and they'd count the skins on the floor and pay them, and out they go. But, you know, that's what happened the old time. Now you wouldn't find that happening in our grocery store or anywhere else. That was pretty much my memory. I do have one other, but I'll get to that just a little later. He had, his wife was Marjorie, and he had 2 daughters, Mary and Esther. Now both of them were fairly highly educated, particularly Esther. Let's see, it was Mary taught school here, and come to find out she taught Gail and I in 2nd grade. And Esther, she went on to get a degree here, and then where was it, in France?
She studied in France. And she also went to Columbia University and got a degree.
That's true, yeah, Columbia. Now they lived in that fair-sized house right next to the Old House, which is on the corner of Fair and East Street. And that's where they lived.
This is the 1940 census, just so you know.
Okay. We have another, okay, the spectacular ball game. Now I think this is great. This is what's happening. Doesn't happen now, but back in those days, you had to make your own fun. And wait, I got to read this thing. It's they had the east side against the west side. And it was mostly merchants. So the west side was on the pharmacy side of the street all the way down. East side was on the other. And they split up and they formed 2 teams, baseball teams. And here I got so many papers. I don't know where the diamond was that they played, but spectacular ball game tied up at the end of the 7th in a blaze of glory and a cloud of dust. A smart strategy on the part of the battery for the East Side businessmen softball team resulted in a tying the score at 39 to 39 at the end of 7 innings. Well, anyway, at the baseball park, and I don't know just where the baseball park was, but maybe back to school. Crushing defeat for San Bernardino's East Siders was averted by Atherton in the box for the East Siders, permitting Alan Stanton, West Sider, to knock the ball all over the lot during the early part of the game. The West Siders, after piling up a tremendous score during the first 4 innings, lost their win and division, and then the East Siders taking advantage of the situation. tied the score at the end of the seventh, and huge floodlights illuminating a flock of missed and home runs to the delight of a crowd that lined the field on all sides. West Siders got 9 runs in the first inning and 4 in the second, and 11 in the fourth. And up to that point, the East Siders had put 9 runs to their credit. The West Siders, Baron Grover made a home run in the second. Dent Robinson staged another one after resting for a time on third. In fact, the East Siders let the West Siders run themselves ragged. And then the boys, whose business places are closest to East Hill, went to work. And how the fur did fly. The East Siders going around the diamond as so fast that at times it was not uncommon sight to see 2 runners on the same base. Farley Stamp pushed out a good home run for the East Siders, and Ward Sanford made a splendid run to third, cutting cross lots, landing him back on second. Umpire Melvin Downs, called upon to make a number of difficult decisions, had his hands full at times, keeping out of the way of players and the big softball. Wilbur Wilcox played a good game at second for the West Siders. Paul Burns, my dad, smashed out 3 hits, and Hank Stanton covered himself with glory in left field. It was a good game and a good time was had by all at the floodlights illuminated party forums running in all directions, kicking up clouds of dust that made it difficult at times for umpire Downs to distinguish whether the players were running bases or running for the ball. The 2 teams will play again next Tuesday evening at 8 o'clock to decide the championship. I thought that was classic.
That's hilarious.
Now, Wilbur was active in the village government. He was town clerk. He was active in the Presbyterian Church, the community activities, sports, which I just read to you, the fire department, and he had 5 prize winners at the state fair. Exhibited 6 silver pencil Plymouth rocks at the Syracuse State Fair, won first and second prizes on cocks, second on hens, second on pullets, and second on cockroaches.
Wow.
And this was in September of 1922. So he's quite a brave guy. He was into quite a bit. Okay. Now, you can see the headline there. I don't know how many of you ever heard the story of the famous cat fight up on West Hill? Maybe? Well, you're going to be surprised at what you hear. Find it here. The fight was kind of kept secret. They didn't let too many know about it. Wasn't publicly advertised. I think the fire department had a little bit to do with spreading the word, and it got around. I know my dad said he wanted to go the worst way, but my mother convinced him to go shop for furniture down at Mount Morris Furniture Store because they had a sale and we just moved into Vermont Street. So here's the article out of the Monday News. State troopers out of East Avon closed in on a cockfight arena Sunday afternoon in the town of Portage, confiscating 163 birds and arresting 67 owners in what the arresting officials described as one of the biggest gamecock raids in the state. Some 75 or 80 cars were parked in the immediate vicinity of the arena. Cars from Syracuse, Buffalo, Pennsylvania, Watertown, Albany, Utica, Fulton, Olean, Pittsburgh, and from most points east and west, including local cars, and on the unexpected arrival of the troopers, their promoters begged to be left alone for just 20 more minutes, and we'll be through. But that was not to be the case. They had 13 troopers under Lieutenant Gerald Bain and Sergeants William Ireland and John Crick, broke in on the midst of the proceedings, ordered all participants to stand fast while court was hastily set up in a vacant tenant house. On one of the nearby farms, over which Justice of the Peace Al Conrad of Nunda presided, with Lieutenant Bain acting as clerk of the court. A pouring rain made the interior of the vacant farmhouse a pleasant point of shelter for the participants, affording 63 the attendants opportunities to contribute $10 apiece, a total of $630 to the court and fines, all of which was paid in cash, 4 having sentences suspended. 1/2 the money collected went to the treasurer of the town of Portersville, less 1/2 the amount for those whose sentences were suspended, making a total of $295 paid to Supervisor Smith of Portage. The open-air arena was located in the midst of a wooded tract about 1/2 mile back from the river road, 10 minutes drive from Nunda. Now you go up there still today, and that's no man's land. Yeah, there's not much up there. But 67 owners all pled guilty before Justice Conrad, 63 paying 10 each, and departing minus birds and the quantity of equipment which was destroyed. It is understood the birds were taken direct to the Livingston County home, where Welfare Commissioner Francis prepared an abundance of chicken pot pie for the inmates of the county home. It is said that there was sufficient quantity of fowl to provide each inmate and practically all attaches at the county home with pot pie deluxe and in a great quantity of both white and dark meat. Members of the Rochester Humane Society participated in the raid. Lieutenant Bain said that the road leading to the arena was so swampy it was necessary to press tractors into service to 3 mired cars belonging to the bird owners. According to Lieutenant Bain, 3 small arenas were found inside the vacant farmhouse, including a small lighting plant and equipment to serve food and refreshments. The raid took place at about 4 p.m., and it was several hours later before calm had been restored along the Genesee, where the Indians once roamed in peace. Contrary to general belief, cockfights are not always stag parties. A number of women were present at Sunday's pageant, one of whom paid the $10 fine for 2 different men. It is understood one local sportsman had cleared up to $300 in the winnings at the fight at that time interruption, and that he most generously paid the fines of many who found themselves without funds. Then there was the fellow who had never before attended but one cockfight, and who had no knowledge of Sunday's affair until visitors from afar stopped at his place to inquire where it was. So he went along too and got there just in time to get his $10 on the line. In view of the fact, a justice of the peace is entitled to $5 for each case heard by him. The 67 who attended Sunday's extravaganza enriched the Monday justice by 5 times 63, plus 4 IOUs, the cash surrender value of which is problematical. The justice has to enter each case separately on this docket, and we understand the supply of fictitious names was pretty well exhausted before one final case was called. Strange as it may seem, one of the visitors in the pleading guilty gave the name of the justice who was presiding at the Yale Congress, which is a good one for anyone to laugh off on a late Sunday afternoon inside a vacant tenant house on a farm while rain descends in torrents on the outside. So it must have been, I mean, it was talked about for, I heard the story, my dad, I first heard about it was that because he wanted to go. Luckily, my mother convinced him not to, and and I have, now, when we lived up over the pharmacy, I had vague memories. I was only between 3, 4, we moved down, I was 4.5, on a Sunday morning hearing a faint rooster crow. And what he'd do, I mean, he went to a lot of cockfights. He was good. I mean, he knew the ins and outs of cockfights, how to train and so forth. In fact, he had property down the back of the Blair farm. And if you go down Bailey Road right in back of Blair's, you go almost to the creek. He had a little chunk of land there where he had his cages, pens, and that's where he kept them, you know, day to day. But after a fight on a Saturday night, or Saturday whatever, he didn't want to go all the way down there, so he'd bring them up and put them down cellar in the grocery store. So, and I have just faint memories of hearing them crow. And Dad said that he was one of his best cod liver oil customers. He would feed those guys cod liver oil just to strengthen their bones. Yeah. So I've interviewed 2 people. They're gone now. That was at the fight. One is Jake Essler, and a lot of you guys know Jake Essler. He was 9 years old. He had the pot concession. And when the raid came on, Jesus, he didn't know what to do. Well, he figured Wilbur would know. He ran up to Wilbur. He said, Wilbur, what should I do? And in the squeaky voice, he says, if I was young as you, I'd run like hell. The other one was Jim Parker. Jim said he was at fight. Jim kind of liked the game a little bit. And he says, when the rain's on, we snuck out the back, and he jumped in the ditch, and he crawled on his belly all the way to his car, got in his car, and took off. So I thought that was something. That fight is a classic for Nunda. I don't know, I mean, how they got wind of it. Somehow the state police got wind of it, and the raid was on.
And it was covered in papers in Buffalo
Oh, yeah.
and Rochester and in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, you can see the little clippings here. Yeah. So I think that's your last slide.
One more.
Oh, one more. Oh, okay. Wilbur obituary. He died in what, 47? And that's his tombstone right back of the main, what's it called?
Soldier's Monument.
Soldier's Monument. Yeah. 47. And March died what? 1976. So that's the story on Wilbur, and there's never been anybody else. Of course, cockfighting's died out as far as I know. You never hear it anymore. But he was a pro at it. So that's the story on Wilbur Wilcox. Any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.